And I remember I was 4 years old, and the neighborhood bully was trying to introduce me to vegetarianism by kneeling on my shoulders and shoving grass between my clenched teeth. And all of a sudden, I saw this huge, powerful hand come down, grab him by the back of the neck, and it was my sister. And she grabbed him and smacked him into a telephone pole, hit him a few times, kicked him, and sent him home crying down the street, saying, "Nobody beats up on my little brother but me." We were best friends from that time until, unfortunately, she died about 10 years ago. This is one of the things that was odd for me, because I guess I'm compressing my struggle to become, to counteract my own ingrained sexism through anti-sexist work and the misogyny that I absorbed early in my life by keeping the effort up. And it requires a lot of endurance because it's very slow to change core beliefs. You're not going to re-engineer those just because you read a book and you're impressed by having a personal experience with somebody you care about. So my sister died. I got word that she had fallen and had a head wound and bled to death. She'd been sexually assaulted by police officers in her community when they were investigating a routine robbery. One cop who was a sergeant wanted to have sex with her, and she refused to. He came by at 11 o'clock at night to fill out a report with a bottle of 40-ouncer of vodka and some orange juice, and she didn't want to have anything to do with him, so he had her brought to his station, and he raped her on his desk, and then laughed when she told him that she was going to have him fired for that. So he was actually fired with no pension, but they wouldn't send him to prison because they told my sister that a police officer going to a state penitentiary would be a death sentence, and she said, "I don't have a problem with that. Let the prisoners murder him for what he did to me." So his buddies, the organized criminals who owed him favors, and others started harassing her in her community. So I thought, well, maybe it was one of them, or maybe it was a gang of youths who were around just hanging out and saw a single woman alone in the parking lot, or maybe it was the serial rapist who was operating in that neighborhood for God knows how long and was never caught, or maybe it was her husband. I didn't know, and I will never know. And in fact, one of my students, when I told this story to them, challenged me. He said, "Well, if it was me, I would have spent the rest of my life trying to find my sister." I said, "You know what?" I said, "Where are all the brothers, husbands, fathers, sons, cousins, neighbors, schoolmates, for all of the women who get sexually assaulted or murdered? Where are the guys out on the streets, and take back the night? Where are the men?" I said, "I know Michael Kaufman started the White Ribbon Campaign, but where are the men? They're nowhere to be seen. Men who are skilled in violence, devoted their lives to violence, and defend themselves against violence, and have all the tools and the emotional reserves to do something about these guys." I said, "They're not out there." And I said, so I'm going to make sure that I talk to everybody else about this as much as I can whenever I have a forum, and especially to men, and to challenge them. So I took that as my personal mission. I said, "Mom, no matter what I find out about who murdered my sister, it's not going to bring her back." I said, "That's the reality. But the reality is that there's lots of other women." So my sister's death was significant in making me decide I was not going to be quiet about it ever again. As somebody who was both an academic advisor and a professor everybody could talk to, and somebody who never identified so much with being an academic as with realizing I had a responsibility to be a fully developed human being, people felt comfortable coming and talking to me. But what I've heard shocked me, because I realized the extent of sexual assault, sexual harassment, incest, and crimes of intimidation, violence, spousal abuse, dating abuse, were so immense, so absolutely normal, that what we think of as exceptional and instances of victimization are in fact the way a lot of people experience relations between the genders. And I'm not saying, I don't think anybody has any clear idea of what extent that actually is. I don't think anybody can accurately measure it, because it's an underground phenomenon. It's like teasing or bullying. You don't really know. It goes on everywhere, and people have just adjusted to it. And it's so much like normal that, what did somebody say? Oh, before they called it sexual harassment, they just called it life. And I think We're into territory that is strange for me because after so many decades, not just years, I see, the feminists I knew from long ago still fighting the same fights, and in fact recognizing that they're losing ground, and I do not see young women identifying themselves with feminism anything but. One of the hardest things I've done is to challenge my male students to speak up to men in all male settings or with their male friends to challenge their sexism. It's hard enough for me to do with my son. I know what I'm talking about. And it's hard for me to do with my friends, but it needs to be done. It must be done. I mean, you have to. Feminism should make you feel like your hair's on fire. And the only way you're going to put it out is when everybody starts screaming that we need some water. We need to do something about this. We need to turn all of our attention to creating a non-sexist world, because it's the only way you can be a human being. And what I end up saying to my male students is what I end up saying to myself. Here's your choice. You can either be a man or can be a human being, but you cannot be both at the same time. Because in order to be a man in this society, it means you have to step on someone who's female. You have to push them down in order to be at that status where you are above and they are below. Because it's a power relationship. When you're a human being, you look each other in the eye and you're all equals. And being male or female is as important as your eye color. But we are so far from that. And the pretense that equalizing numbers in any profession or equalizing opportunities in job or equalizing pay is going to change things. You can do all those things and still have a sexist society. This is the biggest change in social life since we ended being a nomadic existence and settled down to live together in stable communities. And it may be the biggest challenge we've ever faced. Certainly greater than any environmental, ecological, or historical event, because it goes right to the core of how we identify ourselves.